Today I'm joined by a good friend, Liam Cole. He is probably one of the most well-connected individuals I know. He is hugely popular, and this all comes down to his ability to create, nurture, and retain relationships. You know, he often speaks about, with the world going towards digitization, social media, AI, that human interaction, human connections, and building true, meaningful relationships is an art form, and it's going to be one of our most valuable assets. So in this episode, we share more about his art and science of building relationships that go above and beyond, strategies or usual networking. You're going to learn the real skills that has helped him build most meaningful connections with some of the most powerful people in the world. Let's jump in. Well, look, Liam, thanks for letting us host this podcast in your lovely offices.
Pleasure.
Wondering if you could give us a bit of backstory on yourself and what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I grew up in Cornwall, so like a very different place from London. My actual journey into the world of business and everything wasn't one that was planned. In fact, actually in school, I was one of those people that was always terrible at most things. I was just not good at education. I was actually put in classes where I was kind of kept away from the other kids, not because I was rowdy or anything, but because I learned a lot slower and wasn't able to learn as quickly. So I was put in those situations as not sure what to do with this guy. Let's just kind of chuck him in and we'd take him out of school for some days and all that type of stuff. There's a group of us that did it. So long story short, I was never that good at education. I never really enjoyed it. I left school with nothing, dropped out at A levels, and then went straight into just building work when I was young. And then I saw a job advertised for door-to-door double glazing salesman, commission only. And I never really was familiar with commission only at sort of 17, 18. And something about that excited me. I went and met my boss at the time and talked through the role and the opportunity. And it just excited me, like the idea of hustling to make your own money. And if you're not good, then you don't make money and all this type of stuff. And that was my first sort of foray into sales, however you want to define it is sales, but I kind of define it as a little bit different, more around relationship building, and loved it. I spent three years there, door-to-door sales, like old school style, selling double glazing to people that do not want to be sold double glazing to. When you're knocking on someone's door. And I always remember the words of my old manager, and it sticks with me today. You don't know what moment or what situation that person's in when you knock on that door. They could have had the worst 5 minutes of their life before that. So you've always got to approach with humility, care, and kindness, and just be polite and deliver things correctly. That sort of taught me the nuance of reading people, understanding personalities and feelings, and judging all those things that make a difference to whether a conversation goes somewhere or goes nowhere. Did that for a few years, got headhunted for a company to actually run a team. And I was 20 at the time when I did that. I knew nothing about managing a team, but I had a team of 15 people in the end that we basically go out and canvass for this double glazing agency and book appointments for the sales team. And I ran that team, built that out. And then from there, I went into a whole slew of other things, which I'm sure we can get into. But ultimately that initial piece was the fire starter for me, going, I love this. I love engaging with people. I love the communication, the back and forth, the challenge, asking questions and digging deeper, and what you can unlock with that. And I think naturally that led me all into sales and business of that nature.
Building relationships. It's very interesting because I also did door-to-door sales.
Did you?
One of my first.
I don't know this about you.
Yeah, and then I did telesales, and then I went back to door-to-door, and this was also for the Daily Mail group. So I was selling advertising in the newspaper at the dawn of a digital age. So that was a tough one, and I think, like you say, you learn certain nuances and skills and how to read people. And I think a fundamental skill to have in any piece of life, you should be able to understand how to communicate and how to read people.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, everything else becomes a bit tougher.
Big time. I think especially now, you think about, we're jumping a few steps ahead talking about AI and stuff, but truthfully, if you think about AI and you think about actually even social media before that, our ability as humans to communicate has dwindled. We've become very comfortable and safe with hiding behind an email or a WhatsApp or a social media message or your phone and Snapchat. And now, more prominently, AI that can write stuff for you or is completely rewriting what it kind of means to be human. And I actually think that now, I hate the phrase more than ever because everyone says it, but now there is a need and I think a specialism in the art of communication, in speaking, communicating with people, building rapport, building relationships, because as AI and specifically AI grows, it can't do that. Certainly not for a while, right? It's completely different from the mannerisms and the emotion, the feeling you get from communicating with someone. So I actually think that the art of relationship building, of communication, of all these things will become such a skill and a valuable skill in the coming years that people that want to invest in that are going to see dividends.
100%. Can you spot an AI written email or a text?
Yes.
Yeah. I think most people can as well.
Definitely.
Or they can't. Or I'm seeing so many AI written LinkedIn posts these days. And it just feels, even if the content is great and maybe you nudged the AI in the right direction you wanted to put it in, or you just ran it through because you didn't have time. If you don't invest in the content, then how do you want your reader or viewer or listener to invest in digesting it? Because there's an AI filter now. I look at the format, just the length of it, and I'm like, this is written by AI.
Yeah.
Do I even want to read it?
Yep. This is 200 words, and it says it uses overly positive words in situations, and I've seen the most sophisticated increase in da da da. It's like, no one says that, or you're not going to say that. So I massively agree, and I think that people do it wrong. I don't necessarily think that there's a problem with tapping into AI in those situations, but you have to plan. It's the lazy approach, isn't it? It's kind of like the quick success, the quick fame that people have. I think social media has been the catalyst for that. People expect and want things to happen overnight, and they think that if they use AI and just pump a load of content out on LinkedIn without any consideration or thought, that it will get them what they want. It won't, and it will be quite meaningless, and it will just be what a whole bunch of other people are doing. So going back to that same narrative, you can spot the people that take the care and the attention to plan their posts and think and consider it. Doesn't mean that they can't use AI to supplement it or advance it in some way. That's cool, but using it as the base, nah, that doesn't work. It might change in time, right? I mean, AI is evolving so quickly, but I think you'll still be able to spot human content, or what will happen is that there'll be authentication for human content, right? Is this human generated? Is it AI generated? We'll have all of those things.
Yeah. So let's say LinkedIn, the algorithm that's running LinkedIn has seen the level of AI output and will be able to recognize what's AI and what's real based on what you previously wrote and what didn't, the nuances, the language you use, the spacing, the spelling mistakes, how you use emojis, which emojis you use or not, and then suddenly that changes over time. Are they going to put that out in the world or not? Is that really you? The algorithm wants to protect its users, so if it senses that this isn't you, what's it going to do? It's going to block you. So, or just at least limit your reach. So something we should be aware of. But we kind of digressed. I'd love to understand a bit more about it. It was a good point. We will come back to it. But where would you say that this relationship building skill, the art and science of sales and negotiation and truly connecting with humans, has there been certain inflection points that you've gone, I can put it down to that?
Yeah, I lead a lot of it back to the door-to-door side of things. I definitely say that. And the reason I say, and I like to have that phrase, the art of relationship building, because in that you are building a relationship with that person. It's in that small situation, you are building a relationship. And if you think about it in that way, you think about it more organically and naturally, and you try and build rapport with that person, not just think, where's an angle I can attack them and get what I want from this situation? You think, okay, here's the person in front of me. Let's get to know them a little bit. Let's talk about something. It's that easy thing now. If you meet someone, paying them a compliment on something, and let the conversation flow that way, rather than the standard things, asking them how the weather is or what they do for work or all this type of stuff. I think that doing that is a bit of a game changer. So for me, that was probably the catalyst. And then as my career's gone on and I worked at bigger businesses like Amazon and ran when I was at Amazon, they launched something called Amazon Local, which is like a competitor to Groupon, like a daily deals platform. They canned it in the end because Amazon can do that, build something big and then go, nah, let's can it. I was headhunted from another company that did the same thing. It was called KGB Deals. I don't know why it was called KGB Deals. It's run by 118. And my remit was the W1 postcode. So I'd go knock on doors and find deals at beauty salons, at restaurants, at various different businesses and say, we've got a customer pool, let's create a deal, let's offer it to those customers, 50% off lunch or something like that. And through my time there and then my journey into being headhunted to do the same thing at Amazon, I think that was where my realization of the actual phrase, the art of relationship building. Before I didn't maybe see it as that when I was 18 to 22, I didn't kind of see it at that, but that was always my approach. And maybe that was my approach because I can't be mean with sales. I can't do that. I can't force someone or push someone into it. It's just not part of my makeup. So I think that's why I went into that world. But it was certainly at my time at Amazon that it started to click that actually, this is the way I should do it, and this is what is important. And then more prominently, when I was at Quintessentially, who, as I'm sure you remember and know, is the global leader of luxury concierge. My role was to meet and sell a service to high and ultra high net worth individuals, incredibly time poor people that have everything at their fingertips. How do you connect with someone at that level? You can't just sell to them, but they've built empires. They know the game. They know what's going on. And you don't get through the door. You don't get past the EA or the PA to do that. So you have to do it in a different way. You have to build rapport. You have to make a connection. You have to add value. And I think that's another skill as well. My realization there is that if I'm going to get in front of these people, I need to figure a way of adding value. Can I invite them to dinner? Can I tell them about something they don't know? Where can I supplement and add value that makes a difference? And that's how I was able to succeed at Quintessentially and build amazing relationships with incredibly successful people way beyond where my career was at that time. But I'm still able to call on those people anytime, WhatsApp them, and they're friends now,
Yeah. A couple of things there. Firstly, those people are just like you and I. They just seem to have progressed in a certain way more than others, right? Just because they are able to afford certain lifestyles doesn't make them any different a human. They still seek connection. They still have a laugh. Still feel sadness, loneliness in the same way. They're still like you and I. Like, I'm not trying to say that this is it. They're not different.
Yeah, I agree.
So many people think they are. Treat them in a different way. Maybe put them on a pedestal. Others looked at like, say, because you've got too much, you should be doing it a different way. But really, they're just people. And if you approach it in the right way, trying to build a relationship, you might make a friend. I
agree. I think that there's normally wealthy people kind of thought of as this crowd that they do their own thing and whatever everyone else thinks of them. I'll get into the details of opinions on that. But they are, as you said, they are just people. Like they tick and they operate the same way. They have the same challenges, the same problems. And when you realize that, it's like you meet your heroes. You know what I mean? That whole philosophy. That you realize you meet them and they can still be amazing and great, but like, it's just a person. And it's the same thing with those people. And I think when you realize that and you look to connect with them on just really normal, basic things. Like one of my first questions to a lot of those people that I'd meet is, what great book have you read this year? Immediately you're into an interesting conversation. And I read a good amount. They might mention something I've never read before, but you can immediately then start to do this amazing stuff. You're like, oh, cool, they've read that. I can talk about this, and this. And it just opens up a different conversation. Treat people like people. Whatever they do or wherever they are or whatever they've been or done, some people might carry more ego than others or be differing opinion, but I believe that fundamentally you can get down into the real meaning and purpose of individuals and have meaningful and purposeful conversations.
If you were to coach someone or teach someone how to be better at building relationships, how would you go about that?
Listen, first and foremost, is like the obvious thing that a lot of people say, right? Is don't speak as much as you listen, like as in to take in what people have to say. But I think that's a very powerful thing. I would advise people to ask questions and ask as many questions as possible. And even when you think you've asked a question, you've got an answer, ask another one beyond that. So if I was to say to you, how was your day? And you was like, you replied, yeah, it was great, thanks, great. What's the next level to that? What do you get up to? What do you do? How did you feel? Why was that? You can ask such easy, simple questions to dig deeper and deeper. But I think now a lot of people don't do that. They will ask a question and get an answer and be satisfied with it and move on. Or they'll not ask anything at all because they'll not want to come across like they don't know or they're unaware of something or not informed or anything like that. It's so easy to have conversations with people. You just ask very open-ended, basic questions. And sooner or later, you'll find a common thread and you'll be like, wow, cool. You love chess. Oh, I love chess too. And then you're off, then you're into the magic and you can chat for hours about everything. So my massive advice would be to listen and ask questions. You really don't need to say much, because you'll find something sooner or later in the conversation that will click. And being comfortable with pausing in stuff, not having to rush in and say lots of things and everything else. Like take it slow, take it gentle. Take a pause. You don't need to be rattling off loads and loads of questions and being quick and everything. Just be a bit more delicate with the communication.
So we have listen, ask questions. Anything else you want to add?
I mean, the most important thing is the ability to read someone emotionally. I think it's incredibly hard to do. So that's not overnight, you just need to do X, Y, and Z. It's a lot of time to understand when to push a bit more, when to sit back, how your body language should be, when a touch is appropriate and when it's not, when it's okay to break the barrier between professional and thanks mate, those types of things. And that's not something that you can just do overnight. It takes time to do that. But being able to read someone emotionally means that you can deliver things when they're going to be most receptive to that person. I had a meeting earlier and the project was, in the project, it was important that they had a partner in London. For me, just to go in straight away and I know it's important you have a partner in London and we can do that and we're great. No, I'll keep that in the back burner and I'll wait for the right time when they start to talk about something or a pain, and I can then tap into that at the right moment to not only say a point that I think is valuable, but say it in a moment in the conversation where I know that emotionally or just through the chat that we're having, it's going to have the most impact. And I think that's a magical skill to learn.
You posted recently on LinkedIn or you made a comment about a phrase that is thrown around a lot saying, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And your comeback was, I think it's fake it until you become it. So in that moment, reeling off of what you just said on LinkedIn about fake it until you become it, how can someone fake the emotional resonance in relationship building so that then they can become, so I wonder if there's an ability to
so you
do certain things. And also I'm referencing a session that we do early on in the program, which is learning how to build successful habits and literally how to learn anything and become anything. And the simplest form of that is we break it down into actions. We could do everything if we just do something in a small enough action.
Yeah.
When someone says build a business, well, there's a lot of things. Massive mountain, you get fearful, put off, I have no confidence in myself building a business. and that I say, okay, well, if we wanted to build a business, let me break that down for you. I want you to go and turn on your laptop. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Yes. Can you then go to your email service provider, Google? It looks like this. Can you do that? Yes. And if we break down the mountain into small, digestible, easy to understand steps, when that stacks up, you build confidence. You've strengthened the muscle, and then you're doing it. You look back and you go, oh, suddenly I'm built a business.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's a way of breaking down that relationship building technique. Are there certain actions you can do? Is there a certain way of like holding yourself? Is there body language? Is there nuance in how you say things? Is there a pause?
Definitely. So I think that there's a number of things. One is eye contact, and a lot of people are shy about eye contact, and you don't want to kind of dead stare someone in the face and just not break away, but being more purposeful with your eye contact and maintaining. I always look into someone's left eye. I can't remember. There's an amazing study on it which I read, and I'm frustrated I can't remember it now. But it basically talks that looking into someone's left eye is am I freaking you out now?
No, because I'm doing it. I always do it. That is the weirdest thing. So I was sitting there thinking, fucking hell, does he know I'm looking at his left eye?
No, I don't. That's the thing. That's the thing. But it builds when you it stems from when you're a baby and how sight works, and that my understanding, my recollection of it is that your left eye picks up and is able to kind of distinguish things. So there's like a safety and security thing in there. So talking into someone's left eye, or just kind of moving around their face a little bit and then coming back to it. And also you don't have to always be staring at them, but having a moment to look away and then come back and re-engage and just keep the conversation and be comfortable with that. A lot of people struggle with that now, like the whole eye contact piece. Everyone will kind of be like, and kind of look around, or they won't talk at all. They'll look like this and just stare for ages, and then they'll look at you once and say something, and then look away like this and look at you once. So I think learning how to maintain eye contact better. And my tip, the best way to do that is to do that with friends and family, because it's comfortable. Friends and family can be your test subject for all of this stuff. Friends and family first and foremost, do that. And it's the same thing with listening. So the next part I'd say is, don't play eye tennis. Don't go into the game. And what I mean by eye tennis is you say something and I go, oh, you say something and I go, oh yeah, I did. No, ask a question. If you tell me something, if you said to me, I went on holiday recently and I went skiing, etc., maybe someone's usual response is, oh, I went skiing the other day. Don't make it about you. Keep asking about them. So if you said that, I would turn around and go, amazing. How was the trip? What did you do? Where did you go? What did you get up to? Who are you with? Did you break any bones? All this type of stuff. Ask, and then potentially layer on something for yourself. But people are too quick to go, I did this, I did that, me. And they don't do it. They don't do it deliberately. It's a safety thing. It's more comfortable to talk about, someone said something, it's more comfortable then to talk about your own experience that aligns with that person's experience. So remove the eyes. We talked maybe before we were on camera about just things like that. Again, using your friends, if you can move away from that type of verbiage, you don't have to eradicate it. I'm not saying you have to be a robot and everything has to be process driven, but doing that, you'll find your conversation just flows a little bit better. And you can tactically use those words then. You can kind of bring them back in when the situation arises. And you should do all of these things and practice on your friends. Practice as much as you can, have conversations with them, test it out. Your body language is super important. My advice and my tips for that is to always be quite open. It doesn't mean you have to be throwing your hands around everything, but always be quite open and welcoming. And also use your face and your expressions. I heard this piece the other day, which I thought was brilliant, which wasn't quite this, but it was being a loud listener. If someone's talking, not all the time going, wow, oh yeah, going, no, what, wow, okay, and use your eyes. I think your eyes are a powerful thing. Like, you can show a lot of emotion through your eyes. So delivery through your face. We talked about the questions piece before, but asking really simple, open-ended questions, the who, what, how, why. Just stick to questions that are very simple and are going to open further conversations. You don't have to solve the world's problems with the person in front of you. But if you told me about your ski trip, there's 1,000,001 things I can ask you. And I just got to keep digging away. You might give me one-worded answers in some situations. It was good. What was great about it? Like, what did you get up to? Do you regularly ski? Do you go away often? Do you have your own ski gear? Do you do any other sports? Like, you can lead on so easily from those things. And then the listening thing is also important. And that's more about discipline. It's just taking a second to listen. And normally when someone's finished, they're not. It's okay to wait for a minute. Let someone properly finish, and you'll read very quickly if they're completely done. They'll kind of look at you a little bit wantingly, like, you can say something now? And then you can go in and say something. So those would be my kind of selection of tips.
And was this something that you worked on in time and just picked up, and then suddenly you look back and go, well, I'm good at this. This is what this is. Or did you shortcut that success by learning from others, reading certain books, watching certain films?
Yeah, good question. I think reading is incredibly powerful. Just talking of tips and advice, my strong recommendation would be, if you're going to read about the art of communication or negotiating is a great one. You pick a subject like that, read 4 books consecutively, different books, but read 4. That's when you really start to cement your knowledge. It's something that I was taught a long time ago. I was given some advice by a guy who reads a crazy number of books, but he does it where he stacks them. He said the problem is that people jump from book to book and it doesn't really stick. So pick something like negotiation, and I highly recommend that people do that, or the art of communication, or how to find your voice, these types of subjects, and find 4 great books in that space and read them all. And you'll find that your ability to do these things and way more will become far better. Alongside that, podcasts, 100% podcasts. And you can, when you're walking to work, when you're on the tube, that's where I listen to my podcast, because I don't have any other available time. When I'm walking to meetings, boom, I listen to negotiation podcasts, things on longevity and biohacking, Toastmasters, the art of communication, and you hear so many great things. So listening to those as well. And then the other bit, like with all things, is practice. Like, I would still class myself as nowhere near where I want to be. And I think I'll probably always think that way. We talked about this earlier, but I'm turning 35 this year, and I only really started to tap into this properly, I'd say, when I was in my very late 20s, early 30s. So it's not been a more consensus thing around the ins and outs and the processes. I've always, as I said, had that belief around the art of relationship building, but it's only been towards the latter that I've really started to hone in on the details, on the essence of communication. My point there is that it doesn't have to be a 10-year journey. You can learn this stuff pretty quickly.
Was there a moment in your late 20s that...
Yeah, weirdly, I don't know where it actually came from, but there was this sort of switch for me. When I was younger, I never really read books, and I wasn't good in education. I didn't read my first book until I was 27, believe it or not. And it's crazy to think now. But once I read that first book, it was on Pablo Escobar. I think I watched Narcos, and I became obsessed with like the craziness of Pablo Escobar. And I read the book his son wrote on that, and I loved it so much. I kind of got this insatiable hunger to read more, and that started to push me in the direction of what I like to call better every day. And I have this relentlessly passionate hunger to be better every single day, in a very controllable way. It doesn't consume me. It's not obsessive in the sense that, if I haven't read an extra page or done this, I'm going to blow, I'm going to go crazy or anything. But probably that first book started a bit of a cascade. And while that necessarily I wouldn't link to be the moment, I think it was that entangled with the development and growth of my career, of becoming a director here at Poppins and part of the leadership team, that maybe spurred me on to go, I want to be the best me I can be. Life is short. truly it is short. I know it's a cheesy thing to say, but it is. And that inspires me every day to go, I want to be one. I like to call it kind of, it's like the 1 to 2%. How can you be that little bit better, that little bit more, improved every single day?
And in that striving of that 1% gains, have there been moments that you've looked back and gone, oh yes, that I knew that moment where I flexed that muscle, that moment where you've looked back and gone, this has helped me out. This has really got me out of a pickle. Or someone's commended you on the level of work you've done in hindsight.
Yeah. Do you know what? Well, I think when someone, I've had it before. I've had it before in a number of occasions. The first point I'd probably say is difficult conversations. And I think specifically for people on the program, you're going to have tough conversations. You're going to have tough conversations with investors that are going to be on you and going to be difficult and harsh because they're trying to drive a deal. They're trying to get what they want. And I feel like in those difficult conversations, much like a hard workout in the gym, that's where you grow the most. Those are the opportunities to really test yourself. So don't be fearful of those chats. I get why people are slightly apprehensive about them, or having a difficult conversation with a friend, telling them something candidly and honestly. Don't be afraid of those moments, because if you deliver it in the right way with all the things that we talked about and with care and compassion, if they don't take it the right way, it's not on you. That's on them. And actually, what you can find, and I had a conversation about a month ago with an individual, and it was a conversation that went away. I didn't expect it to. And I normally pride myself on kind of thinking ahead and how these things can go. And it got very, very intense. But my reply remained very not combative. I reduce my ego from these things, and I just think, how can we find a solution? And I just keep asking questions, delicately, politely. Okay, if you felt that way, like why? Like what made you feel that way, etc., etc. And it got us to the point where actually everything was amazing in the end, and we kind of figured out a path forward, and we're going to do some cool stuff together and everything else. So don't be afraid of those difficult conversations. I think they're important to have, and that they can kind of help you through that stage. I've also received over my career some lovely messages from people, which still surprise me to this day. I'm like, really? You're kind of saying that about me? I had an email from a guy a little while ago who sent me a reply on email, and he said, it is so refreshing. I got introduced to him and then sent him an email. His email to me was straight away, I don't need anything. I'm all good. Thanks for the intro, but leave me to it. And I replied to him basically saying, that's completely cool. I'm just here to see where the dots join. Have a little chat, see what's what. If it works out, amazing. If it doesn't, no harm done. At least we've explored it. And his reply was just glowing. I wish more people approached it like this, with the interest in just having a chat and seeing what's going on, rather than trying to push a narrative or something on you. So those are definitely catalyst moments. And then I think for me, one of the most amazing things is your peers, those around you. When someone around you that you're close to notices it and says something amazing about you, it's great having it from, some super successful girl or guy or whoever it might be, but actually those closest to you, I think it's an amazing thing, because it's not always said that much. And when they do notice it and they do say it, I think that's a very magical moment. I've been fortunate to have quite a few of those in recent years.
Something that's like really stand out for how we've known each other over the years is your network, and how you're one to play, not necessarily play, but I guess the phrase that comes to mind is you have dug the well before you're thirsty. You've planted those seeds long time ago. Mm-hmm. You've watered them, you've nurtured them. Nothing's sprouted. Like you probably never even expect them to sprout, but they're there. That's something that I've seen you do time and time again, and just paying it forward. And one of the key things you spoke about earlier was providing value. Could you unpack that for me? What does that mean to you? And have you seen the value that you provide come around to being valuable back to you?
Oh, that end bit of the questions are a hard one. My gut reaction is probably no, not yet, but that's okay. I'm cool with that. I don't add value with the desire to receive.
No, I get that. I mean, it wasn't
and I know you mean
like,
that.
you were planting so you get value back. And that's why I asked it, because I know from the level of input and output that you give to others, the value you've been delivering, and the relationships you have. I wanted to know if it had ever just come out and you've been like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, that's not 100%. My response isn't 100% accurate, because actually a lot of the opportunities that, let's say, we do at Poppins are through relationships that I've nurtured forever. And if I hadn't have done that, they wouldn't have come back, and we wouldn't have done amazing projects with those businesses, people, that sort of stuff. So my answer is maybe, I think of certain scenarios where you do have to be careful that some people will take, and you do have to suss a moment where you're like, okay, I'll stand away from that now, and I'm not going to keep adding value. So you do have to be careful to read those, read those moments. Going back to a point around adding value, for me, and touched on it earlier, the catalyst to that was when I was at Quintessentially. It's the mindset that I can't just send a successful business entrepreneur an email and expect to get a reply. How can I add value to that person? And what can I send them that would be interesting and worthy for them to go, okay, cool, I'll have a chat with that person. So finding ways, and the ways that I did that was to build as many relationships as possible, primarily in restaurants. Restaurants has always been my go-to. And there was a meme ages ago that I saw, and it was it talked about like social acceptance or social worth, all that type of stuff. And it talked about having nice cars and money and a big friendship group. And it said number one was being able to get people into restaurants. You know, that thing your mates like, can you get me into this? Restaurants and that was particularly important at Quintessentially, because most of the bookings that people made were restaurants, and people wanted to get into the cool restaurants. So I actually invested a lot of time into building those relationships. And I always had a powerful thing to tap into, and people would call me and be like, oh, can you get me into this? Can you do me that? Yeah, no problem with you, WhatsApps, etc., etc. That was a very interesting tool and space that I worked hard to nurture, because it fed into adding value. But beyond that, it's just become relationships. Like the stuff that we do, I listen attentively to what you're up to and what you're doing. And I just make a mental note of who I could potentially connect you to or put you in touch with. So now my advice to anyone listening to this is make as many relationships as possible. You can't maintain them. You can't maintain 100 friends, and you can't maintain 10,000 contacts, but you can make a meaningful enough connection with those people to remember them. And what I do in my phone on my notes is, once I've met someone for the first time, I will jot down straight after the meeting as much as I can remember, so that when I think of something, let's say you come back to me and you say, I really want to buy a new Rolex, really want to get this certain watch. If it doesn't come straight to mind, afterwards, I'll go into my directory and put Rolex or watches, and I'll see everyone that comes up, and I'll be like, that dude can help you. I'll put you together. So the more you build those relationships, the more you build those circles, the more you can add value to people. You can consult and you can advise and you can provide other services, but really the most value I've always added is through access or through introductions.
Super valuable, because it's impossible for you on your own to have all the answers.
100%. Completely impossible. But you can lean on a lot of other people that do have the knowledge and do have the answers. And the exciting thing is when you do an introduction right, you add value to two people, not just one person. So, it creates a lot more success. What you can't do is be lazy and do the scattergun. We just talked about lazy AI. Lazy introductions is just as bad. So-and-so meets so-and-so, you'll do great business together. You need to take your time and make and it takes a little while, a proper email, a proper introduction, why. I'll call people first, give them a little heads up and everything. And, that can be slightly bigger, slightly smaller, depending on the nuance of the connection made. But also introducing someone to someone else for the benefit of yourself is also a lazy introduction. You need to make sure that you manage the nuance between those two people, and it has value for both of them. If I introduce you to someone tomorrow that just wants something from you, cool, you might be like, okay, Liam's built up enough cash in the bank to do that. But if I kept doing that, you'd be like, dude, please stop just introducing me to random people that, are no value. Or are wrong for you. I think you have to be careful with that.
Interesting. A lot of the businesses and founders that come through the program are solopreneurs. They generally work with small teams early on in their careers or in their business journey, and relationships are going to be key. How does someone go and provide value to it, or spend enough time in a space that maybe for a long time may not ever bear fruit? I guess entrepreneurs always have this long mindset. It's something that's fairly impossible. It's a dream. It doesn't exist yet. And you're able to spend dark, lonely, a lot of ugly, lonely time trying to build this dream into a reality. So not afraid of putting the work in, but I want them to put the work in the right space, because again, especially impact, sustainable, climate-driven entrepreneurs, we don't have that much time. So I wonder if there's a way of being focused and delivering enough value in a space that will have impact early on to then just give you a little bit of a, oh yeah, this was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But also not be afraid to get shit done. You know, I think there's a fine line, and what I'm trying to unpack, I guess, as well, I'm trying to figure out in my mind is like, I've gone and spent years and years delivering value, trying to just put the good word out there without any hope, and again, so have you, of it wanting anything back. But if it was all in vain and it didn't build a future that I would want to be part of, or had the opposite, how do we make sure that we're moving in the right direction, do you think? Because like you say, restaurants.
Yeah.
I'm trying to have the restaurant version of what the cohort should focus on.
Yep. Yeah, well, it will be different for different people. That said, I think that the restaurant thing, to kind of play back the restaurant thing, it's like with all these pieces, you don't start from 100, you start from 0. No, I knew no one. It wasn't like I just walked into the restaurant and everyone was like, oh, I know this dude, and etc. etc. I went and ate there and asked to meet the GM. Just got chatting to them and got to know them and built a relationship with them. And you have to start somewhere on these things, and start in that situation. I started small and just built relationships, and it snowballed. I spent more time there. And I'm not saying I went out for dinner every night, like, no way, but spending time and actually introducing myself. Most people will go out for dinner and they'll have a lovely dinner and they'll go home. I'm not saying you have to go and make best friends with the GM, but if you are following this process and looking to build relationships and make connections, ask to meet someone there, ask to make a connection, ask to speak to the manager or whoever it might be and get to know them. Restaurants is just one example, but you can do that across the board. I mean, in my opinion, I think for people in this program, going to investor and startup events, I'm sure they go to lots of them, but go into those, meeting other people in startups, meeting investors. You're going to meet people in the right circles, but you can also then think more expansively, you know, and you can think about, okay, restaurants are stuff that people like, or people really enjoy going to bars or things like that. But, you know, build up some knowledge in that space and meet some people in that area. But you have to start by actually going out and doing it. You can't sit at home behind you could join Zoom groups and things like that, but it's not the same. You can just go on Eventbrite and look at a load of events and go to a few. Go to a couple of events a week. But it costs you next to nothing, like £10-15, most of these events. Go to the events and just mingle, meet people, start to meet people, start to connect with people. You know, you might find that the space where you want to have most of your contacts in is completely different from restaurants. You know, that's cool. You find that niche. You might not need a niche at all. You might just be good going out and meeting people, but that's the fundamental thing. And there is no better place, in my opinion, in the world to do that than London. London is the place to go to all these events and meet people. And as I said, you can keep it very simple. Just go on Eventbrite, see what's going on, go to events that way, speak to people. You'll then start to get invited to other things that they're going to. And before you know it, within 6 months, a year's time, you're like, I know all these contacts. I can call Jeff because you just talked about wanting to get a new ring for your other half or whatever it was. I know a guy that can help you with that because he's in jewelry and that type of thing. That's how it happens. It's an organic thing, but you have to put the effort in first.
Interesting. And just on like the tactical side, you're storing this in your phone book or in a CRM. Like, does that even matter?
I find phone book easier because, I mean, CRM, you could get a subscription or do a CRM thing. I've never really bothered with that. I've just done my phone. I always add all the details in. I add their like title, their email address, anything that I mean, I'm not like sat there going, give me all of your details. But especially if you get a business card from people, and by the way, I want to say something on business cards before I forget. Get as much info as you can, like phone number and details. Connect with them on LinkedIn or Instagram, or like everyone's available on most platforms. And then just jot down any notes after you met them. You might not remember everything. You might meet 10 people that night, and you might just remember one thing, but it's enough. It's enough to be like, Chana did this. Oh, and he also went on holiday recently. Okay, cool. That's enough juice. And then a couple of days later, I drop them a WhatsApp or a message or an email, like whatever communication is you feel is okay. And just say, look, it's really cool to meet you. It'd be great to keep in touch. If you're around, let's grab a coffee, maybe get to know each other better, that type of stuff. Keep it casual. Some people will say, yeah, let's do it straight away. Some people never reply to you. That's just the nature of it, right? That's people. But yeah, that's keeping it. I mean, I say, if you can find a good system that's better for you, great. But having like a whole Excel sheet and stuff like that, why bother when you can just put it on your phone? You can ring people and message them straight away. The thing I wanted to say on business cards, sorry, I have like a thing about business cards. A good friend of mine once said something that I think is extremely important to remember about business cards. And we have very lovely business cards, but I always remember this, is that a business card tricks you into thinking you've done enough. So in those situations, don't just be the person that goes out handing out business cards. Hi, I'm this. Get to know someone first. The business card is just a leave behind. It's this is me, if you need to, if you don't use your phone or exchange details. But don't just go running around handing out business cards. That tricks you into thinking you've done enough. You haven't. You need to build rapport with people. And when you do that, use some of the techniques that we spoke about earlier. Try not to ask the basic questions. What was the weather like today, and how was it? What book have you read recently? And some people will look at you a bit confused. They're like, didn't expect. Oh, well, I read this. Ask them more interesting. Where are you going on holiday this year? Where did you go last year? What's your favorite sport? So, things that are quite passionate for people. Ask those kind of big subject questions that are just going to jump into passion. You can talk about the weather, fine, but like that's the kind of easy go-to, right? Weather, work, where do you live? Probably most of those networking events are like that, those three questions. Think a bit differently. Ask different stuff and you get different answers.
You want to be memorable. You want to connect with someone so they remember you the next day, and then when you do drop them a message or follow up, or even better, they are attracted to you and magnetized for your mission. They reach out to you, even better. And just saying the same thing that everyone else has said isn't meaningful. A lot of them, I just, the way that I see this is like, how would I want to be treated? Like, I don't want to be asked the same boring question. I don't want to say, oh yeah, this and that. One thing that really does me good is if someone gets my name right before I've even had to explain it right.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's rarely happened. Probably count the amount of people that have done it, and they're either Turkish or they've actually taken the time to watch some of the content, or they've just Googled, like, okay, it's not that hard to figure out that Jana is a Turkish name.
Yeah.
How do the Turks pronounce C's? Like J's. There you go. And that I'm straight away interested because it's different than 99% of every conversation I ever have. And it shows that you've invested in me, you're interested. One of the best sayings I ever, I guess, heard, I can't even say who told me, which may be good or bad, is to be interesting, you have to be interested.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And I'm going to maybe reveal too much about some of the cheesy things I do, but sometimes when I'm not able to pronounce someone's name and I have a meeting with them, it's different if you meet someone in person. That's also just a final thought on the networking thing. I have a slight discomfort towards the word networking, because I think it's transactional now. It's who are you? How successful are you? Can I get anything from you? Here's a business card. And you go to these events where, and I'm not saying people shouldn't go to these events, right? I'm saying that you can, when you know this, you can move differently in that space. People go to these events with your name card slapped on there. My feeling is that they do that because it's easy, right? It's lazy for me to just keep looking down rather than have to put some effort in to remember your name, because all I care about is your name's that, what can I get from you? What are you doing? So I think that if you approach these networking events with the mindset of the art of building relationships and all the things that we spoke about before, you're gonna move differently in that space. You're gonna create magic, you know?
Yeah. Jim Quick, have you come across him?
Yeah.
He's a brain coach.
He's epic.
He has devised a number of, I guess, systems or processes, actions to take in order for you to improve your memory recognition. One of the things is just flip on your head the motivation you have behind how you go into someone. And I'm awful in names, faces, unless I see someone's face, I remember their name. But if someone told me their name, like someone, you said, Liam, do you remember Tommy? I'm now imagining people's faces. That at the moment is a disconnect. And I found that is something that I always had. So I was like, how do I hack that? How do I try to improve that? And one of the best things was I try to imagine that this person is my emergency contact, or that person is going to save my life or save my wife's life. So the way that I've changed it recently is that Izzy has a huge nut allergy and it can be killer. So I associate that person's name with the person that's going to be on the end of the phone to be like, Jana, your missus gone into anaphylactic shock, or whatever, you know? So I then motivate. It used to be, I will pay you £10 million to remember everyone's name in this room. You're probably going to go and do it, aren't you?
Yeah.
If by hook or by crook, you'll find out a way to remember everyone's name if you were going to be paid 10 million quid.
Mm-hmm.
Now money isn't a thing. It's more like, who do I have around me? Who do I love and care about? I then associate that with the value of someone's name.
Very good. You're posing the question to me about how to best remember names.
Go ahead.
Twofold. One, once someone's told you their name, saying it a number of times in the conversation, that's number one, and that will cement it in your mind. You know, nice to meet you, and then you find a way to say it again. You find a way to say it again. Find a way to say it again. I also then do and I think this is a Jim Quick method, which is you connect the name with something. I met a guy the other day, and he told me the most insane story about being robbed. Horrible story, really tragic, and he just kind of got himself back and everything. And his name was Rob, and I just remember Rob got robbed.
Okay.
So like that, and that was what I taught myself. And I find these little rhymes where I can, and it's not perfect, you know. You all forget people's names and everything, but I find these little rhymes as well as that other piece to cement someone's name, because it's incredibly powerful when you've met someone for the first time. You remember their name and a few things about them, and you meet them again, and you're like, oh, and you say their name, and you say that means so much to people for being remembered, being heard. And what I was going to say earlier about prepping for meeting someone is I'll sometimes use pronouncenames.com. If I'm not sure how to say their name before a meeting, I'll put it in there. I'll listen to it a few times. I've got it. Also, don't be afraid to ask. Someone introduces themselves to you. How did you say your name again? I want to make sure I always get it right. People are more than happy to go, oh, it's Liam. Quite an easy one to remember, but it's Chana, you know, like all these things, those things, and actually going back to the question you were asking before, like around that is doing your prep. Spend a bit of time, you know, like take a look at their LinkedIn, read through a few things, see what they did, et cetera, et cetera. This is more when you're set to meet someone, right? And other stuff rather than the organic situation, but don't just go in lazy. Don't turn up to a meeting the next day and not know who you're meeting or what you're doing. It pays to put the effort in, you know, details matter.
The world is very noisy. And if you're trying to break through the noise, in person, online, you have to stand out. And to break that noise, the only thing that will get your attention in a very noisy room, do you know what the sound is? Your name.
Very good.
The other side of it is how you communicate and what you say. Another noise that will probably get everyone's attention, rather than just yours, is there a ting of a glass.
Yeah.
And a ting of a glass could be a speech, or a ting of a glass of all the glasses falling on the floor, big crash, could also get people's attention. So there's ways of communicating, doing certain things. But a name it's yours. It's the thing that you've probably heard the most.
Yeah.
And it really helps connect with the person that's on the other side.
It's one of the most, it's your identity. I'm careful if I word this. You're more than your name. Hell of a lot more than your name. But your name is, it's, especially considering when we talked about being a child earlier and the left eye piece and everything, that it's that family and that bond, that name is so deep and meaningful because it's what your family gave you. And some people change their names because it doesn't mean much to them, but most people have that connection and they would never change their name because it's like, my parents gave me this and this is who I am. Like, it is a part of you, and remembering that part of someone is an amazing way to build rapport and connection.
Amazing. Look, you've been super helpful. You've given us a good playbook, a solid foundation on how to build relationships, influence people or not. Is there anything else that you want to share that you feel is important?
It's a big open-ended question, isn't it? You're challenging me back on my own stuff.
That's why we're here, mate.
Kind of continuing in the same vein around relationship building and communication and everything like that is be uncomfortable. And I know that's that's a traditional thing in business and everything else like that. But I think that people maybe don't push themselves from a communication perspective or social perspective. There's so many people that are lonely or don't have connections or relationships. And I think especially if you're a solo entrepreneur and you're carving a path and doing your own thing, your head is down most of the time. But you need to lift it up and challenge yourself. It's dangerous to be head down all the time because you can move into a rabbit hole and kind of alienate yourself from those interactions that will be valuable. You'll need to interact with partners, with customers, with investors, with advisors, with all of these people, and pushing yourself and being exposed to those conversations. And they will be uncomfortable. You'll go to events and you'll go to an event alone and you won't know anyone and you'll want to just grab your phone and do this and feel comfortable and safe on your phone. Don't put that away. Push, speak to people, engage. And as soon as you start doing that, you'll find it's not as hard as you think. Some people will find it a lot more challenging, yes. But once you start doing that, you'll realize actually it's not as difficult as you think, and it will be a catalyst for great opportunities and great growth.
There's some really good advice there. I was really trying not to say I and follow on how I've also leveraged the exact things that you're saying, because a lot of what you've said, I've included in a lot of the previous program, like elements of me sharing my story on, I discovered that I got more or left this event from doing X, Y, Z. So it's actually really refreshing. I often say to people that it can be uncomfortable, but remember that would you feel more uncomfortable not sharing the value you bring in the world and who you are and potentially making a friend, or especially if you're running a business, you spent a lot of time developing something that is good for the world, good for people. It's your duty to share that with the world. You're doing a service.
Yeah.
You're not extracting, you're giving. And you're depriving that person on the other side of that value, of discovery, whether they want your product or not. But there's also an element of that other person is probably feeling way more uncomfortable or a little bit shy or fearful of rejection. And they actually are begging internally, I wish someone would just strike a conversation and not be a dickhead.
Yeah.
So you not being a dickhead and going up to people and being nice and letting them experience a good better way of networking is helping them.
Yeah.
Like you're bringing them out. You can have a good conversation. You could even go up to them and be like, usually these sorts of things are very awkward.
Yeah, exactly. You can make fun of it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Two last things just on that. Whenever I'm in those situations, I always think, I feel sometimes like, okay, I'm not sure if I, want to engage with loads of people, but I always think to myself, the greatest opportunity could be in this room. The greatest opportunity could be in this room. If I leave, that greatest opportunity will never be realized. So let's have some chats. Let's get to know some people. And I think that having that open-minded approach and knowing that communicating with people really in its essence is no different from having a chat with your friend. You just don't know them yet, right? Like it's the same. A lot of people that where they are now with different success, they weren't just born there, right? There's so many people that are self-made, and like the people that are on your program, they will be hugely successful self-made individuals. And it's the same thing with a relationship with someone. You don't all of a sudden just become friends. You can have amazing rapport and you're like, click, yes, but it takes time, and you should treat it no different. I think people think about, professional and personal, and it's like this different world. I just treat it as one from a relationship perspective. Yes, there's a certain way you speak and operate and stuff in business sense, but once you build rapport with someone, you can understand where the lines are and you can cut around it. Like, you don't need to say, dear so-and-so, you can say, hey John, how's it going? That type of stuff on email.
Have you ever got that wrong? How would you know you got that wrong? I'm just thinking back. When I asked that question, I don't even know if I know the answer to that. Because I don't think someone would be vocal enough to say, it's dear, such and such. Or, is there a line? I guess.
I think, yeah, if someone calls you out on that, it's just a hands up moment. No problem at all. I respect that. I make sure it'll always be dear, John, moving forward. Thanks for letting me know. I think that thanks bit is important because it's if you just put a line in and said, no worries, I'll always make sure it's dear John moving forward. We're talking about email comms, now, which is like, especially in that situation, it's quite blunt. So the thanks for letting me know bit is cool. I got it wrong. I want to be a little bit better. I'm glad you informed me. Same with saying your name incorrectly. Like if you meet someone in person, you just go, oh, cool. I really appreciate you letting me know that. I'll make sure I get it right next time because a little joke, But yeah, if someone calls you out on it, it's just cool. I got it wrong. Don't be afraid of. It's a mistake, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things that founders learn on their journey in business is that actually success is all about making mistakes. And you hear it a lot, but it truly is. We did this, it went terribly, terribly wrong. Okay, we've learned from it and we've grown and we know not to do it again. And it's the same thing with interactions with people,
True, very true. Liam, another thing that's been very admirable from sitting over here is your tenacity and hunger to grow as an individual as well. Around, what did you say? Like, you love biohacking. When has been a time where you realized that like core health, mental health, physical health has been enabled you to add those 1%?
Definitely. This is something I absolutely love talking about, so I won't go on too much. People talk about time being your most valuable asset. Time is incredibly important. But if you're not healthy, your time is worth a lot less. If you're unwell, if you're ill, if you're struggling with health issues, the value of your time and the impact you get from your time isn't as meaningful, if you're not able to do things or whatever the situation may be. So my belief and opinion is the most valuable thing you can ever have is your health. And investing in your health will add value to every single element of your life. Everything.
Interesting. Yeah.
Everything. So once that clicked for me, it was a no-brainer. How can I continually invest in my health and do more to make me the very best? Optimal, I don't like to use so much because maybe it sounds a bit robotic, but the most improved, healthy, mindful, conscious, fit, all of these different things, version of myself to live my best life. Because going back to the thing, like life is short. And if I want to be successful in my career, and if I want to do more stuff, if I want to be great with people and have great relationships, both professionally and personally, my health will implement all of that.
I see health as a multiplier. Health is something that can either multiply the impact that you have.
Mm-hmm.
If you have low health, multiplied by a great product, the impact is going to be less than if you had great health with a great product.
Yep.
Yeah. Same with health and a personal relationship. Poor health, that relationship isn't going to be as strong. And then on the other side, let's say you're losing your health. You're running out of time because your health is declining.
Yeah.
Right? So I see health as the core foundation, and that enables you to be able to multiply your output and your impact.
Definitely. And I think actually one of the biggest things with health, if your sleep is core. Sleep is the number one pillar. You can have a slightly off diet if your sleep is not good. That's where you so focusing on sleep, but sleep, nutrition, movement, mindfulness, like these kind of core pillars, tapping into them and unlocking that will, and specifically for founders that are challenged every single day, it will make your clarity of thought much better. It will make you more able to deal with emotionally challenging situations around difficult conversations and everything else. If you're incredibly healthy, your mind is clean and things aren't so hard to process. If you've gone out and had a heavy night and the next day you have difficult conversations, it's tough. It's tough because your brain's operating at 30%. Same thing if you continually eat bad food, or if you desperately need a coffee at 3:00 and you don't have it and you have a big meeting, you're not good. I'm not saying that you have to eradicate all of these things from your diet and do all this type of stuff, but once you start to tap into those higher levels of health from all the points I mentioned, you realize that actually your mental ability to deal with difficult situations, your company being on the brink and then fixing it, your health is paramount to you being able to turn those situations around.
Building a business is super tough, probably one of the toughest things you can do. And there's a lot of pressure and stress compounds. So in order to deal with those things and make it slightly easier, you should have a layer of health, right? What are the key things that you have been able to bring into your life to improve your health that you think is now non-negotiable?
I'll go back to sleep again. Sleep, definitely. I wear an Aura ring. I mean, people get a bit fussy about wearables. I don't need this to tell me that. You got to use the data. Like just getting the data is, you you got to utilize it. So I use an Aura ring to kind of track my health and everything. Like a couple of things to do on health. Sleep. The most important thing is your sleep-wake cycle. That's like paramount. So to make sure that you get a good sleep-wake cycle, it's slightly more important than necessarily the duration of your sleep. If you can go to bed and wake up at the same time and have the same rituals and the same routines, you'll get more and healthier and better sleep. Things like blue light blocking glasses, turning off TVs, not being on phones, not eating too late, having a wind down routine, reading also reduces stress and anxiety. And then when you wake up, sunlight exposure as soon as you can. If there's not sunlight, turn the lights on. If you want something better, get a SAD lamp, 10,000 lux, boom, like that really gets you going, and have a routine that gets you up. The other part of that for me is I have an amazing functional medicine doctor. I'd recommend that anyone don't have to explore a personal functional medicine doctor, but explore that in some way, get your bloods taken, understand what your intolerances are, and what your body does and doesn't react to. If you can fix your body internally, your skin will be better, your mood will be better, your performance will be better. And one of the biggest causes of illnesses and death is inflammation in the body. And that starts, as I said, from inside the body. Inflammation can be caused by foods and a whole bunch of other stuff like that. So understand yourself nutritionally. A good gym membership, I'm a gym goer, but movement, walking, getting out, doing other pieces. And then for me, treatment. And treatment is hot, cold therapy, sauna, ice, but also working with specialists on movement. I work with a couple of people on hip mobility and things like that, making myself as supple and capable and free flowing as possible also unlocks my training.
Incredible.
I can give you so many more, but we'll be here all night. And
So a different podcast.
It's getting late. Yeah, another podcast.
Liam, you've been an incredible host. I really appreciate it. Incredible guest and host. You've been incredible host
For
of
the
an amazing location, Jim, and this Monstera. I love this. I want this in my home now. And sharing your incredible knowledge and wisdom has been super powerful. Is there anything else you want to leave as a departing gift?
No, I think I would. The conversation we've had today has largely been around relationships, and I would just echo what I said earlier around with the world evolving and the growth of AI and AI's ability to quite quickly do a lot of tasks that people can do. The skill of connection and relationships will become more valuable than ever. So that's my last takeaway.
Thank you. Is there anything that the Kind community can do for you?
Nothing. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Madhu.
This podcast will teach you how to build and scale your purpose-driven business and drive purposeful profits.